So I just watched a really good fucking movie, 1917. Now, 1917, just from looking at it, it's very clear that it wants to stand out among a lot of other World War movies, or just war movies in general. For one, the subject matter. World War I is a very complicated war and a very complicated history. It's really difficult to make any kind of movies or video games off of it since there's no real bad guy. Really, World War I is pretty tragic in that people were dragged into it and they didn't even know why they were fighting. They were just given a gun and told to kill people. Well, obviously something like World War II is a lot more simple. Nazis bad, go fuck them up. So already you have a pretty small pond. Well, another hurdle that they decided to go through is the way the film is shot. The reason I bring this up is because it's very clear just from watching the movie or any interviews or articles about this movie, it's all supposed to look like one long shot. Obviously, there are cuts here and there because you can't really go through the entire movie in one long take. There are inevitably going to be scenes where you kinda have to just bullshit a reason to sneak in another take. Like, for instance, maybe a tree's on screen and it covers the camera for a little bit, or a bunch of soldiers walk past and the faces are obscured and their bodies are obscured, so then all of a sudden they can pop out and it's a new take. Some little tricks like that to give you the illusion that it's one seamless journey. Now, the story for the film is actually pretty simple. You have two soldiers fighting for the British in World War I France. Well, the Germans have just retreated back, and they believe that this is an opportunity to advance ahead and gain more ground. Well, these two soldiers are ordered by a general to go and deliver a message to a colonel across the front line that this is all a massive trap and the Germans are waiting for them. And it just so happens that one of the soldiers that are preparing for the attack is the brother of one of the main characters. Obviously, he wants to save his life and the lives of over 1,000 soldiers, so they decide to go on this journey to try and stop the inevitable. Now, what I like about this movie is the fact that, despite what you may hear, that the characters are very flat or don't get much depth, they actually do feel very real and human. It's just not the typical way you would see a character fleshed out in something like, say, Saving Private Ryan. In fact, that basically describes the movie in a nutshell. This is a very harrowing experience. In fact, if anything, I was reminded more of Children of Men than any other type of war movie, and it's because of just how nightmarish they make World War I feel. Everything is dirty, bombarded, and feels dead, even though people are running around. It's just kind of a nightmare you have to deal with in the film, and these characters have to try to stay alive in. And another thing I really do enjoy is the fact that despite the characters not having these big emotional moments where they spill their guts out and you learn more about them, it's more through very subtle ways you can understand their personalities and their histories. In fact, you learn the entire backstory of one character in a single sentence, where he describes how he fought in the Somme. That's it. That's the most you know about this guy for a long period in the movie. But it's interesting, because the entire point of the film is that you're not watching this big, grand, historical epic. You're watching two guys just try to survive. And they make that very difficult in the film. There are multiple points where the tension is sky high, and you will hold your breath, because anything could happen to anybody. These characters are not special by any means. They're two grunts. For all you know, they could both die in the middle of the film, and the rest of it's dedicated to watching this entire battalion get shredded. And the fact you have that in the back of your mind is that is a very legitimate possibility, keeps you on the edge. And another thing I really did enjoy, along with the seamless journey that you follow, is the fact that everything just looks strangely beautiful. Roger Deakins did the cinematography. He's a really talented guy. He worked on Blade Runner 2049. Dude's been nominated multiple times for multiple awards. He just made World War I feel so very real. Everything looks exactly like how you would expect it to look. There are dead bodies strewn across the ground, mud soaked into everything, rats crawling all over the place. There's one scene in particular where a character is running through the ruins of a bombed out town as flares are glowing in the sky, and it's just fucking haunting. But it's so beautiful in that strange ethereal way. And really, that's kind of the best way to describe the movie. It's very beautiful, but it's fucking ugly too. You see some nasty shit. See, Battlefield 1 kind of enraged me with how it depicted World War I in times, where it's just too Hollywood. It doesn't understand that World War I was a fucking hell on earth. This movie understands that, and it shows no one wanted to be there, and anything could have killed you. Literally anything. And there's some nasty depictions of injuries, wounds from bullets and explosives, knife wounds. There's some damage that people go through, and it's not nice to look at, but it shouldn't be. It's showing you how bad World War I truly was and what these guys went through. And it makes you appreciate the slower moments when a character is just given time to sit down and breathe. There's so much going on, so much chaos and carnage, that those tiny moments where someone can just sit down and listen to someone singing a song or talk about a funny story feels like an utter relief, because it really is. There's so much horror going on around them that those moments are needed. That's what separates a very good, dark story from something that's just trying way too hard to be controversial or edgy. You need to have moments of humanity, and that's why I really like this, because it really does understand that. There are plenty of times when characters are given a chance to decompress and breathe before they're dragged back into the worst of it. So you really care, and you want these guys to stay alive and make it through to the end. Now, Sam Mendes is a director I've enjoyed for a while. I really like his James Bond movies. I even am okay with Spectre, even though it's not as good as Skyfall. You could tell he really cared about making this a fantastic film. There's a lot of respect to the history. There's no bullshit to it. He just wanted to show you what World War I was. He wanted to show you what these soldiers experienced. Now, were there any moments that had me like breaking down into tears, crying because of the emotional weight of it all? Not really, but I'm also pretty desensitized to movies like this, so maybe it's just a personal thing. There might be a scene or two where some people that maybe aren't used to it or aren't expecting it will actually have some kind of emotional moment. I'm just saying that I personally didn't have it. That's still not any kind of ding against the movie. I think it's fucking incredible. I'm just saying. But that's all I can really say about 1917. I don't want to go too in depth because, as stated, the story's pretty simple. So if I say anything, it can be pretty much a spoiler, and there are some moments where I do want you to go in not expecting shit. Still, this is a fantastic movie. Definitely one of the best World War I movies, so that's a pretty small pond, and just one of the better war movies, period. Not even talking about the seamless one-shot gimmick it uses, because it isn't really a gimmick, but that's what people are going to call it inevitably. So that aside, even though I do think it really does add to the film and it wouldn't be the same without it, it's still a really good story. It's still a really great movie. Everyone does their job really well. It's well acted. The shots are fucking incredible. The action is very intense. There's not a lot of it. Don't go in expecting there to be massive battles. There's not. It's more about just trying not to get into them. Regardless though, it's very intense, very exciting, and I loved pretty much every minute of it. I was engrossed from the word go. So hopefully you guys will check it out and love it as much as I did. And until next time, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys.
The only thing I could call great about this movie would be the costume and production design. The acting was fine, but nothing amazing. The script was alright, but kind of bad at points. It was unfortunately a really underwhelming experience overall for me.
I disagree. I disagree, Gary.